Hi, classmates and professors. I'm Mr. Robert Reyes. I'm here to talk about MAPP, or as you can read, mobilizing of action through planning and partnership. So I'm going to keep this short. Promise won't take 10 minutes, right? But uh, the first time I read this is actually there's actually a resource in the module guide, right? That you can actually refer to and read it yourself, right? And the first time I saw it, it's actually part of a website that has at the top a kind of section head, title heading that says Community Toolbox. So it's actually a part of a kind of tool or for a toolbox that's basically meant for communities. Right? So it's section 13 of that MAPP. Okay, on the next slide, right, we define what MAPP is, right? So it's a joint project of basically the way it started and developed as a joint project of an ACCHO or NACHO, I'm not really sure if that's the correct way of saying it, and CDC, or the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Uh, Basically, the United States rely on CDC for its public health concerns and issues, right? So it's basically MAPP was designed as a tool for public health, right, or to further intentions and thrusts for public health, right? So basically, MAPP efforts are meant to be focused, although not exclusively, on local public health structures and institutions. Its vision is communities achieving improved health and quality of life by mobilizing partnerships and taking strategic actions, right? So uh, basically, if you were to read the whole thing, right, you'll realize there that it's not really just about our concept of health for the longest time. It was really centered on being able to address pandemics. Right now that we had one, right, we have. I'm not sure if we still have one, and uh, treating diseases, right, preventing diseases, right, and we think of it in terms of the individual, right. What MAPP is trying to say is that no one can be considered healthy unless it comes through the community or it materializes in the community, right. I remember when I was in UP college, right, many of my classmates took public health as a pre-medicine course, and I thought, right, that's not biology, right? That's not really going to help students know more about how it is to really become a good doctor, right? Now it's come full circle for me because of MAPP. I realized that public health is really the center of the whole thing that we're trying to do in terms of health, right? So let's push the idea further. It says here, right, what the health, right? Nasa ano yan, it's a Netflix documentary title. So what the health? In 1986, can you imagine? It's a long time ago. WHO, or the World Health Organization, using a document that we now call Ottawa Charter, set out 9 requirements for a healthy community. So first piece, shelter, education, food, income, stable ecosystem, sustainable resources, social justice, and equity. As you can see here, it's not really just health, right? There are actually many parameters that include who we are in relation to the community, or what the community is able to basically proliferate for those living in it. So, in whose view, only when all of these requirements are available to everyone can a community be truly healthy, right? So, it's a tough act, right? So, in order for this to be achieved, it's all about making people come together, right? So, let's continue. According to MAPP, right, there are 7 underlying principles, right? So, let's have them. The first principle is systems thinking, right? Systems thinking involves examining the underlying structure of community health issues and systems in order to create lasting positive change on a community level, right? So looking down so that you can really know the system. So before you can actually talk about health or the parameters that we mentioned a while ago, you should be able to understand the system, right? That's the first principle. Second principle is dialogue. So we're not talking about dialogue speaking one on one, right, or speaking in a group, right? So dialogue is all about ensuring the inclusion of diverse perspectives, right? So it's all about, so the word is basically, the operative word is diverse here, so that the voices of all stakeholders are heard in the MAPP process. So it's basically inclusive, right? It's all about inclusivity. Third is shared vision, right? It's basically all about guaranteeing approval and ownership of the process by all concerned, thereby increasing its chances of success, right? Okay, if one particular sector is left behind, that's not successful. That's not a shared vision. So again, in order for us to be, to call the vision successful or achieved, right? These principles have to be realized, right? Next, data, right? So data, of course, is, we all understand data, but in this case, it's a principle, because if not data, people will be relying on perceptions, anecdotes, intuitions. And if we were to rely on data, right, all these things that we are hoping for, all the vision that we are aspiring for, right, becomes objective, because we can actually look at it in terms of its tangible nature, right? So it's not about just one person's opinion over the other, right? Next, partnership and collaboration. It's all about making not only for a fair process, but increasing access to resources and placing responsibility for success on more shoulders. So, of course, we want accountability, right? But if only one person, or if we concentrate the responsibility and duties on only a particular uh, sectors of the community, it becomes difficult, right? So partnership, it's all about sharing the load, so that everybody has an equal say on planning and partnerships, right? So next, strategic thinking. It's all about making proactive rather than reactive approaches to issues and systems, right? So we've seen this in barangays, right? I've seen it. I also work for the Public Health Information Office of Ayala Alabang, and you know, by nature, people are emotional, right? And if we bring something like MAPP or MAP here, we're able to really think of strategies so that we can actually address things by keeping our heads over our hearts, right? I think you know what that means, right? So that's another principle of MAPP. And then finally, celebration of success. It's about keeping it, so it's not really just about, okay, the work's done, we celebrate, right? Celebration of success. It's all about saying that people are human, and that people need to be motivated through being enthusiastic and marking progress and tracking them, so that there will be a kind of group achievement and even individual achievements where people can actually say, yeah, I'm part of this, I'm contributing to this. Right? So there, from the seven underlying principles, you now have an idea what MAPP is, right? So let's now go to the phases, right? So very quickly, the first phase is organizing for success, partnership, and development. So in this phase, a particular core group, an inclusive steering committee, we recruit them, and basically the process is organized and planned out. After that, number two comes visioning. The community and the committee work together, right? So now we have committee. They're going to come to the community, and the committee goes to the committee as well. So it's basically a two-way street, working together to develop an overall shared vision, right, of health in the community. So again, we're talking about health here, but I'm sure you can imagine how it can also probably translate to other fields or other branches that people are concerned for, right? So it's all about being able to guide the planning and action to follow, right? That's what vision is all about. Third, assessments, as mentioned. This is perhaps the main feature that sets MAPP apart from other similar models, right? Because here we take assessments really seriously, right? So we're not talking about, because here what we're talking about here are particular kinds of assessments, which are four in this case. The first is community themes and strengths assessments. They basically ask residents or members in the community to name the issues that are important to them, to talk about what they feel about them, to basically identify community concerns and even assets that exist in the community, so that it can be used for a particular vision, which is, again, in this case, health, right? Second is the local public health system assessment. Basically, this examines all elements of public health system, from hospitals to health aides, elements work, how they're structured, how they interact with sectors and elements in the community, and nature of their resources, right? So this assessment is completed using the National Public Health Performance Standard Program local instrument. So I know people can get into more detail about this, right? But basically, you think about public health here, and it's about assessing that public health system, right? Third is the community health status assessment, which looks at the health of the community members and of the community. So we're speaking of quality of life here, quality of life issues, and this includes everything, right? So I mean, we're talking about the health here, right? We're talking about wellness, right? Probably health is not just basically physical health, because it's so easy to identify health with physical health, right? But we're speaking about wellness. And if you speak about this, many things come together there, right? The article mentions employment, housing, the environment, and so on and so forth, right? Security, all these things, right? So it's basically holistic. And the last one, the fourth one, the forces of change assessment, examines what is happening or might happen in the future that will have an impact on community health, right? So we're not just thinking of the past to explain what's happening today. We're not just thinking of today, so that we're able to basically address all the daily concerns, but we're also planning for the future, right? So we're looking at all the forces that might come into play into the future, right? So, well, there are many experts who have done this, right, are still doing it, right? And I think we all know, in hindsight, how many people were already speaking of things that might happen in the future, like the pandemic, right? The COVID-19 pandemic, and yeah, we all probably these days we all know the factors that came together that allowed it to happen, right? So that's also part of, so basically, prediction and future planning, future thinking is also part of the MAPP process, right? Number four is strategic issues. This uses a participatory approach. The community and the committee, they both examine the data collected in the previous phase to identify key issues that might be addressed in order to realize the shared vision. So again, we're thinking of strategy here. We're thinking of data here, so that we eliminate reactive actions that basically don't get people anywhere, right? So we're thinking about research here, or thinking about getting data here, so that we can look at things objectively. And then finally, action cycle. This phase comprises the planning, implementation, and evaluation of the action that the group takes to achieve its goals. It's seen as a cycle because the assumption is that the process is ongoing. Action is continually evaluated and adjusted to achieve greater effectiveness. The planning, implementation, evaluation cycle, they all continue until the community achieves its vision and generates a new vision to work toward, right? So it's basically a cyclical thing, right? So there, uh, basically, here's a diagram, right? As you can see here, right? These are all the things that we talked about, and it's a cyclical process, and the vector and the direction of all these things, it's not really, it doesn't go clockwise only, counterclockwise. It's multi-directional, right? It's basically each of the sectors trying to help all of the actions coming together, right? And it's all about putting all collective efforts so that everybody can actually take part in it, right? So that's actually the end of my report. I wanted to keep it short because I think uh, a process like this, like MAPP, right? It opens a whole field for discussion, right? Say for example, these are the two things that I'm going to ask of you, right, later, as you comment in the comment section. First, why do you think MAPP is effective or could be effective even up to now, right? And even in your chosen field or field of work, right? Second, who are all these people coming together, right? Because the general idea is, right, we get people who are leaders, right? But as you can see here, it's not just about leadership, right? It's not about just leaders, right? So those are the two questions I'd like to ask of you, and thank you for sharing me your time, and I look forward to your comments and replies. Thank you.